They already poured concrete, my neighbor yelled over the phone. They're building on your lot right now. I was 3 hours away, standing in a motel parking lot after a long delivery shift. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, building on my lot? The HOA says it's part of the new security gate expansion. They brought in trucks this morning. Security gate? I didn't approve any gate. I didn't sign anything. I drove back faster than I should have. When I turned into the subdivision, I saw it immediately. Fresh concrete forms set right at the edge of my front yard. Rebar sticking up like metal fingers. 2 workers smoothing wet cement. And right there, in a bright blazer like she was cutting a ribbon, stood Karen. I slammed my truck door and walked straight toward her. Why is there concrete on my property? She didn't even look surprised. It's not your property, she said calmly. The HOA reclaimed this strip for community safety improvements. Reclaimed? That strip is part of my deed, I replied. She smiled like she was talking to a child. Your deed is outdated. We updated the community plat last month. Updated without telling me. One of the workers looked nervous. Ma'am, he's saying this is his land. Karen waved him off. Keep working. That's when I saw it. The wooden survey stake that used to sit near my mailbox, gone. Where's the boundary marker? I asked. She tilted her head. Probably removed during site prep. Removed. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. You started construction while I was out of town. We had a schedule, she said. And you've been difficult about community upgrades. Difficult? Behind me, 2 neighbors were whispering. One of them avoided eye contact. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. Close-ups of the wet concrete crossing into the exact line, where my lawn changed shade. I knew that line well. I maintained it every weekend. Karen leaned closer. You're embarrassing yourself. The board voted unanimously. Show me the county approval, I said quietly. Her smile flickered. We don't need county approval for internal modifications. Internal concrete foundations are not flower beds. That's when twist number 1 hit her. I walked to my truck and grabbed a folder from the back seat. Not random papers, official copies. Because 6 months ago, when the HOA first mentioned expansion, I quietly ordered a certified boundary survey. Something about her tone back then didn't sit right. I opened the survey map and placed it on the hood of her SUV. According to this, I said calmly, your foundation is 18 inches inside my parcel. She laughed. Too quickly. Private surveys don't override HOA authority. Correct, I said. But county records do. And here's what she didn't know. Last year, after my wife passed, I transferred the property into a family trust for my son's protection. That trust filing included a fresh county-verified boundary confirmation, stamped, recorded, untouchable without my signature. Karen's voice sharpened. You're trying to stop a security gate that protects children. There it was. The emotional play. My son plays in this yard, I replied. You poured concrete where he runs. Silence for a second. Then she pulled out her phone. Fine, let's get this settled properly. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. She walked straight to the officer and pointed at me. He's interfering with lawful construction. The officer looked at the wet concrete. Then at me. Sir, I'm asking them to stop building on my deeded land, I said calmly. Karen crossed her arms. He's making false claims. We updated the plat. The officer asked the only question that mattered. Was this change recorded with the county? Karen hesitated. Just for a second. That hesitation told me everything. The workers had stopped smoothing the concrete. It was starting to settle, right across my boundary line. And if that foundation cured in place, removing it would cost the HOA thousands. I looked at Karen and said the line she didn't expect. You should have checked who you were building on before you poured the first inch. The officer asked for documentation. Karen opened her folder. But I noticed something. No county stamp. No recording number. Just an internal HOA resolution. The concrete was still wet. And the clock was ticking. Because once I made the next call, this wouldn't just be a boundary dispute. It would become unlawful construction, with penalties that could freeze the entire HOA project. And Karen had no idea who she had just tried to outmaneuver. The officer stood, there looking from her papers to mine while the concrete behind us slowly started to harden. Ma'am, he said calmly, internal HOA votes don't change recorded county property lines. Karen's jaw tightened. This is a gated community improvement. He's blocking security. I didn't raise my voice. Ask her for the recording number. The officer did. She flipped through her folder faster now. Pages rustling, no answer. That's when I made the call. Not to a lawyer. To the county building department. I put it on speaker. Can you confirm if permit number 447 includes foundation work on parcel 22B? I asked. Pause. Keyboard typing on the other end. No, sir, the woman replied. That permit is approved for electrical trenching only. No structural foundation authorized. The officer slowly turned toward the wet concrete. Karen tried to interrupt. We amended the scope. Was that amendment filed? The officer asked. Silence. That was twist number 2. Because pouring unauthorized structural concrete across a recorded boundary isn't just a civil mistake. It's a violation. Within 15 minutes, a county inspector truck pulled up. He didn't argue. He measured from my survey stake, the one Karen thought was gone. She didn't know I had metal reference pins, installed underground during my trust filing. Permanent markers, hidden, protected. The inspector found the exact line using a locator tool, 18 inches inside my parcel. He didn't even look surprised. Immediate stop work, he said. Unauthorized structural encroachment. Karen's voice cracked. We can adjust it later. He shook his head. Concrete must be removed before cure completion to avoid structural violation fines. And here's where it hit hard. The contractor walked up quietly. If we break this now, we lose the whole pour. That's $25,000. The neighbors started whispering again. Karen spun toward me. If you'd just cooperate, we wouldn't be wasting money. I looked at the foundation cutting into my grass. You wasted it the moment you crossed my line. That was the line. The inspector added, failure to remove encroaching foundation within 24 hours may result in daily penalties and lien review. Lien review. Board members who had just arrived went pale. One of them whispered to Karen, you said permits were handled. She snapped back, they are! But her voice didn't sound strong anymore. The concrete crew began scrambling. Jackhammers were brought out. The wet slab was cut apart before it fully cured. The sound echoed through the neighborhood. Not celebration, consequences. And then came the final blow. The inspector looked at the overall gate design. Since structural placement changed, the entire gate permit is now under review. Karen blinked. What does that mean? It means construction is frozen pending compliance audit. Frozen. The whole project. Not just the 18 inches. The entire expansion. Neighbors who had been quiet before now looked angry. Not at me. At her. One board member stepped forward. Did you start this while he was out of town on purpose? Karen didn't answer. That silence was louder than anything she'd said all week. As the broken concrete was hauled away, the officer handed me a copy of the incident report. You handled this calmly, he said quietly. I nodded. I just protected my son's land. Karen stood there watching her project collapse in one afternoon. But what she still didn't know was that during the permit freeze, the county reviews financial disclosures tied to HOA-funded projects. And if funds were moved without proper approval, this wouldn't just be about concrete. It would be about accountability. The permit audit didn't take long. Once the county froze the gate project, they started reviewing invoices, contractor payments, and HOA transfers tied to the expansion. Numbers didn't match. Payments were made before votes were recorded. One invoice was approved without full board signatures. At the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Karen stood at the front, trying to sound confident. This is a misunderstanding, she said. All projects were for community benefit. Then the county compliance officer spoke. Calm, clear. Improper authorization of structural work and misallocation of association. Funds require corrective action. Corrective action. That meant refunds to the HOA reserve account. Personal liability review, and immediate suspension of the project until proper approvals were completed. One board member stood up slowly. Did you move forward while he was out of town? Because you knew he wouldn't be here to stop it? Karen didn't answer. The silence said everything. A vote was called right there. Not dramatic, just official. Karen was removed as president that night. The gate project was redesigned from scratch. This time, they hired a licensed survey team. The new design sat fully within common property lines. No inch crossed my yard. A week later, 3 board members came to my door. "We owe you an apology," one of them said, "and reimbursement for the damaged lawn." They handed me a written agreement confirming my boundary and guaranteeing no future modification near my parcel without direct consent. I read it carefully. Stamped, recorded real. My son stood beside me holding a small American flag he keeps from school events. He looked up and asked, "Are they done building on our grass?" I smiled. "Yes, for good." A month later, the HOA held a small community picnic. No grand gate, no flashy entrance. Just folding tables and simple decorations. Families laughing. Kids running. No concrete in my yard. No fake authority. As the sun went down, one neighbor came over and shook my hand. "You didn't fight loud," he said. "You fought right." I looked at my home. The lawn restored. The boundary clear. "I didn't serve this country to ask permission to stand on my own land," I said quietly. And this time, no one argued. Because sometimes the strongest message isn't shouting. It's standing firm and letting the truth do the work.